headphones, make sure we're not echoing. All right, Aaron, go ahead and say something for me. There's a 35-second delay, so give me 1 second. No, you're muted. Hold on, it's on my end. Something happened. Go ahead and say something, Aaron.
Hello, this is Aaron Austin speaking to you live from the office of Aaron.
All right, there we go. We're good. We're live. Sorry about the delay, everybody. We had some. Yeah, it's technology. It works when it wants, or doesn't work when you want it to actually do it. So we are good now. We can hear you, Aaron. And yeah,
Very good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How was your weekend?
Low key, very low key. We have something going on with my youngest, sickness wise. He's had fever, sore throat, no COVID, so that's good. But it's kind of derailed our weekend, which is not, by any means not a bad thing. We were supposed to have that mighty snowstorm that we didn't really get, and the weather's been cold, so not a bad thing by any means. And he seems to be rebounding okay, but a couple long nights this weekend.
Well, it's a good thing it's not COVID, right? And
yeah.
I mean, it stinks. So hopefully you guys get figured out what he's got. But
yeah,
the snowstorm wasn't. It still sucked. I'm going to say that though. I mean, it was wasn't a ton of snow. I don't know what it was, maybe 3-4 inches, but it. I didn't do my driveway right away, and it was one of them wet snows. So we drove over it, and it is now I could actually ice skate on my driveway. So fingers kind of the temperatures didn't look very promising of getting up to any kind of melting point. So I believe it.
No, it was, I don't know, it's kind of disappointing. I mean, for your first snow, you always want to have a nice one. And to hear like it was going to be like somewhere in the 6 to 8 inch realm, I think is where we were kind of initially talking. And then I know because that night I was up with Brooks, and I checked my phone at like 3 a.m. because I went and looked outside. I'm like, it's not snowing anymore, and like the whole entire storm had like dissipated and all stayed north. And yesterday I went up to Verona for my son's baseball practice, and my older son, and they had a fair amount of snow up there. It's pretty snow packed up there. So, and that's only 15, 20 miles away from here. So It was very, very bandy snow is what they were saying.
I like it though, because it was that wet snow that stuck to all the tree branches and everything.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty snow. It did take. I have a small little crabapple tree out front of my house that is no longer. It's and I got Christmas lights on it and everything. Right, it was all beautiful this year, and it went over. So now it looks like a giant shrub with Christmas lights on it. But we'll leave it for now and cut it down when it turns ugly.
That's modern home decorating right there.
Exactly. Modern art. Doesn't matter what it is. It's modern art. All right. We'll dig into it. So I'll start it out here. I'll read the leaders are the ones who run headfirst into the unknown. They rush toward the danger. They put their own interest aside to protect us or to pull us into the future. Leaders would sooner sacrifice what is theirs to save what is ours, and they would never sacrifice what is ours to save what is theirs. This is what it means to be a leader. It means they choose to go first into danger, head first toward the unknown. And when we feel sure they will keep us safe, we will march behind them and work tirelessly to see their visions come to life and proudly call ourselves their followers.
Very good. I actually, when I was filming my other video for the production side, because I had a quote on there from Rosalind Carter that was talked about leaders. It stated that leaders tend to move people. What did it say? It was leaders work for the group, but good leaders will actually move a group into an area where they are not necessarily want to go, but need to go. And I thought that this was very, kind of encapsulated the same thing, and that's kind of, I think, a difference between a leader who just gets things done in a day and then a leader who really drives for change and drives for the betterment of the group and the good of the organization. So, and I was thinking about this yesterday when I was doing that quote.
Yeah. I like that. That was who would you say it was? Carter?
Yeah, Jimmy Carter's wife, former first lady. Let me see what I'll pull up the exact quote here. I just had it open here. Good quote. A leader takes people where they want to go. A great leader takes people where they don't necessarily want to go, but ought to be. And I thought that was just really simple, but very good, very well said. Because I think you see that a lot of times. It's very easy to operate in the comfort zone, but to push outside the comfort zone. I think when you look at any kind of take a cross section of any kind of organization, any kind of team, you have those people that are actually good people, but they're afraid to get outside the comfort zone. And you need those really strong leaders to push them outside that comfort zone and get them operating in a different wavelength. It's different from what we're talking in this book about safety circles. There is a safety circle that which you do have to maintain constantly, but you do have to push your group outside of that comfort of safety to explore new territories and explore new realms. Turn over every single stone. Is kind of the thing that we say, the quote that we say all the time. Never leave a stone unturned. So
yeah,
like that kind of all speaks in that same language.
Yes. So we continue on with this abstract. It's kind of broken down into a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, and this chapter is really small. I mean, it's like 5 paragraphs, but it kind of is a good bridge into the next section. It kind of ties in what we have talked about, abstract or abstraction, and then also sets the table for what's coming, and that is leadership principles and kind of formulating your own leadership playbook, if you will, as you grow into a leader. So this one, this chapter talks about imbalance, and there's some good aspects in this short chapter. I think first and foremost, when we talk about kind of moving outside of your comfort zone, through time, I think people really strive and they thrive really well when we live in a time of abundance, meaning you live by the means of basic survival. You don't have a thing called surplus. But when you have surplus, I think that is when people start getting lazy, if you will. Things come easy, and then surplus can be a surplus of food, it can be a surplus of money, it can be a surplus of resources, surplus of time. Sometimes you feel like, I wrapped up that project. My next one's not for 2 or 3 weeks down the line. I'm just going to take these 2 or 3 weeks off, not do anything. And I think, sometimes, that is the right thing to do. Break, but sometimes it's the wrong thing to do. Sometimes you need to grind. Sometimes you need to set the table for the next project so it goes smoother. So, in the first beginning half of this chapter, they really talk about that, really having a wasteful mentality when in the advent of having surplus. So it is really kind of a time management thing to start off here with imbalance. let's see here. It's just reading here.
What's that?
So I was just reading something here. So I think too with the abundance of surplus, you start seeing people, really pushing for their own personal interest, pushing for their own personal gain, simply because now they look at it and they say, okay, well, my piece of pie went from this big to this big. Now I could just cut a bigger slice and nobody's going to really care. So it is a function of management and having good management to make sure that you do operate well in that time of surplus. Because we all see the ups and downs of business. When times are hard, I think when times are hard, it's almost, and I dare say this, that it is almost easy to operate, because when times are slim, everybody just seems to know their job. It seems that everything seems to fit and click, and everything goes well most of the time. But when you do operate in that surplus, when you do have that free time, that's when people start slacking off. They start, decrease. The productivity goes down. Just because if they like I said, they feel like the pie is bigger and they can take it a little easier. So that's really what we're talking about when we talk about imbalance is operating that time well.
Yeah, I mean it's a thing you can see across, specifically for you and I, right? You go from from the plant thought process to even the sales process of a salesman that's trying to get to quota. You tend to be a little bit more hungry, a little bit more willing to get up and go out and pound on those doors when you're trying to hit the number. And once you get to the number, that's where it starts to separate those guys, right? It's the ones where they throttle off and they're like, well, I've already hit my number. I'll just, I can do the bare minimum and I'm all good, right? Because you've hit that abundance already. To the ones that say, what, doesn't matter, let's just keep going. Yeah, 100%. I mean, you can find this easily in all kinds of areas.
Yeah, and that's I don't think that we need to live our lives and structure our jobs so that everybody feels like their job's at risk. But I think at some point in time, you have to start feeling some kind of pressure. If you're not feeling some kind of pressure in your job, whether it's personal pressure or outside pressure from a leader in your company, I don't think that you're doing your job. Essentially, I don't think your organization is going to strive and thrive. I mean, you do have to have some kind of pressure at some point in time, to really make you grow. So what they really do in the tail end of this chapter is they talk about the destructive abundance, which is a form of imbalance, which basically means that we're all set out for our own personal interests, which means that we have enough surplus within our organization that everybody is now basically defunctioned, not working for the betterment of the group, and they're just going out and doing their own thing for the betterment of themselves. And this does set the table for the next chapter, because if you look at the very last sentence, it says destructive abundance almost always follows when challenge is replaced by temptation. So, which is very interesting, because when challenge is replaced by temptation, that means that if you're not challenging your group, then that group is not going to function anymore based on challenge. It's going to have to be only by temptation, which means you're going to have to move people by money, by monetary things, to make them move. Otherwise, they're going to leave. The temptation is that the greener pasture is on the other side of the fence, and I'm just going to leave because now I can make 25 cents more, or my commission structure is half a percentage point higher than the job that I'm at right now. So you really, I think when you look at your companies and you get to a point where you have destructive abundance running rampant, that's when I think you really got to look at what's going on, pump the brakes, and realize that you're headed in the wrong direction. Your structure needs to change. Very, very important here. And I think not all the time do you see it. I mean, because in this day and age, with the job market being so large, people can get a job almost anywhere now. The grass is almost always greener anywhere you look. So how do you keep people motivated within their own jobs? And really, I think it boils down to how you challenge people. If you keep them challenged, if you keep them satisfied, I don't think you'll have a problem. But if things start getting to that point where you have surplus, where the jobs become easier, you're not pushing for more, then they're going to start getting bored and they're going to
Yeah,
start looking elsewhere.
100%. I mean, it's that's the biggest. I don't know, at least for our industry, whether it be for contractors. Let me back up. For contractors in our industry, right? That's a big deal. Of you know, one of the biggest issues is labor, and one of the biggest complaints outside of just finding labor, but it's that they left. This guy left here to go here for this. You know what I mean? And they continue to chase that, and it becomes uh, uh, both groups, or that company where the guy left gets into the mentality. Okay, the only way I'm going to get a guy is to. It becomes a temptation thing, right? And that's crazy. So it's amazing when you start to see this, how that starts to translate pretty quickly into as we're going to go into the next chapter. But
Mm-hmm.
it can start to show you, and which is what it is. That's what this book is all about. So it should relate to real life, obviously, and it's from real life. But that's the biggest question is labor, right? And it's not necessarily always going to be more people. It's going to be, how do you keep people and how do you motivate them? And it's just, I don't know. Some of the stuff, all of a sudden, it just clicks on you when you hear it. When you hear it and then you start to read about it from another perspective. You're like, oh, wait a minute. That's what I'm dealing with. Okay, it's just amazing.
Yeah, it is. It really is, and I think that a lot of this, when you look at it at a high level, what we really are talking about is how you really should structure a company for success. The circle of safety. That's so important to have a circle of safety for everybody to feel safe and operate within their jobs and understand where everybody is ticking. But I think more often than not, when we start to feel this imbalance, we start to almost wave the white flag before it's even happened. You start hearing through hearsay. This chapter uses it very well. They coined the term politics, and I think that's very well, because it's very well said, because that's what it is. You get the water cooler politics going on, where John says to Bill, "Hey, I'm just fed up. I just can't stand it anymore." He hasn't said anything. He doesn't say anything to his supervisors. Bill doesn't say anything because he doesn't want to look like the narc that threw him under the bus. You know, so that nothing gets said, and then all of a sudden, the bosses find out through hearsay, and they're like, "Well, fine, he can just go somewhere else. I don't really care." Rather than confronting the situation and keeping that circle of safety strong, it's like I said, it just becomes politics. It becomes this side said this and this side said this, and there's no intermingling between the two. And then nothing ever gets done. So I think that's something that I think is very apparent throughout this book is how you structure your company so that you are successful. And it's not always about just, landing those big jobs or producing the most amount of product. It's not always about that. It's about the core. It's about the values. It's about the circle of safety. It's about how you move your people into uncomfortable zones, how you push, how you strive, how you thrive, how you treat people. It's all of those things, which is very apparent in many of our books that we read. And that's exactly what we've been talking about for many, many weeks now, is how you structure your company properly.
Nailed it. I've got nothing more. 100%. Kudos.
Well, it is. It is. I mean, you really have to move away, especially in this time frame that we are in, with everything that is happening, that has happened, that's yet to happen. I think there's still a great change coming about. I think you're going to start to see some of these positions being filled by the right people if you're looking in the right realm. But if you hold on to old values and old principles that are unsuccessful, you're going to continue that perpetual cycle of failure.
Yeah.
At some point in time, something has got to click. You got to wake up and you got to realize that this is a different job market. This is a different way of doing things. And we have to think differently and act differently to get different results.
Yeah. The doom loop goes back to another book. Yep.
The doom loop. Yep. Exactly.
What is it? Was it Einstein who said the craziest thing is to continue to do the thing that doesn't work, or however that went? I completely butchered that, but I put my own spin on it there.
I can't think what that is either. It's like the definition of insanity is doing the wrong thing over and over again or something like that.
Doing the same thing over and over again. That's not work.
Yes. Yeah. But it just kills me sometimes as you see people, because they look at the bottom line and they think that they had a successful year, but then they don't want to get into the details of how many people that they cycled over. The 2 lawsuits that they got to solve because of unfair practices of hiring and firing. They don't want to look at those things. Those are very easy things to navigate through as long as you change your structure and your thought and your mindset. Then you can still have probably a higher profit and less things that you got to complain about. But sometimes, we just can't get past the bottom line, and that's wrong.
That's the everyday challenge, modern business, right?
Yes, exactly.
So go ahead.
We move on now to chapter 17, and we talk about leadership lesson number 1. So goes the culture, so goes the company. And this is exactly what we've been talking about. My dying words are going to be culture is everything. I can tell you that right now, because that's 100% I believe in. I believe that too. And every fiber grain in my body, the culture is everything. If you don't have the culture, you're not going to have the company.
And this is going to be fun, because I think that this is a challenge. The term culture and the understanding of that, I think, also takes growth. And I'll use the term maturity, right? I don't mean it that somebody's not mature, but sometimes fresh out, right? You might be a brand new leader and just don't quite understand what that truly means for culture, or how important that really is, because you haven't experienced enough to understand that. I guess if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that it definitely means a lot. It means something completely different to me now than it did, 12 years ago. And the importance of it means a lot more to me now than it did 12 years ago. So this will be a fun one to go into, because that's in the back of my mind.
No, that's very well said. I mean, I actually had a very similar path, when I had started my career, and I don't, by any means, you and I are both not seasoned business veterans by any means, but we do have some business savviness to us, some interesting aspects of us that aren't common in industry. So there is some truth to that. When I started, it was all about the numbers. It was all about the numbers, and I understood that. And then I also understood, because I experienced the failures that come of that by just looking at the numbers and relying on the numbers. And it sounds like you had a very similar story when you start to realize that how you set up your culture is really how you win this game.
Yeah.
That's very important, but it's something that you forget all the time. You're not taught that way. Nobody's ever taught that way. They're always taught it's about the numbers.
100%. Yep.
True.
Sweet. So yeah,
that's where we're at. We'll have probably we can keep going with this. I mean, we got to Christmas coming right around the corner, but Christmas doesn't fall on Mondays, so we should be good.
Yeah, I mean, we're good to go next week as far as I'm concerned. Next, same channel, same bad time. So,
yep, I'll be here.
Awesome, perfect. Thank you everybody for joining in, and Aaron, have a good rest of your week.
You too. Thank you.
Take care.